It was just another quiet Sunday morning. I had my usual cup of gas station coffee, the kind that tastes weirdly better when you drink it outside. I was sitting in my old fold-out chair on the dock behind my cabin, fishing rod in hand, not a care in the world. The lake was calm, not even a ripple. Birds were chirping. Everything felt still, peaceful. Then I heard it, the crunch of gravel and the faint hum of a golf cart. I turned my head and there they were, 3 HOA board members rolling up like they were about to raid a drug den. One of them, a woman I'd seen before yelling at kids for sidewalk chalk, jumped out like she was a cop on TV. She had wraparound sunglasses, a laminated clipboard, and the kind of look people have when they think rules make them powerful. She pointed at me and said, "Sir, you are in violation of HOA Code 7B.5, unauthorized recreational angling." I thought she was joking. I almost dropped my fishing rod from laughing. I mean, I wasn't partying. I wasn't making noise. I was fishing. On a dock I had maintained for 10 years. The whole thing was so over the top it felt like a prank. But it wasn't. And that was the moment I realized this wasn't just about fishing. This was about control. And they had no idea who they were messing with. I bought that cabin 10 years ago. It wasn't anything fancy. Just a small place tucked behind some trees with a view of the lake that made everything feel slower, quieter. That lake was part of the reason I chose it. It wasn't just water behind a house. It was where I went to clear my head. I'd fish in the mornings, drink my coffee out there, sometimes just sit and watch the light hit the surface. No noise, no rush, just peace. For years, nobody said a word. Not a single problem. I took care of the dock myself, patched the boards, cleaned up the trash that drifted in sometimes. It felt like mine, even if no one ever handed me a paper saying so. Then came Karen. I don't know her real name. Everyone just calls her Karen because, well, she acts like one. Always has that tight-lipped smile like she's doing you a favor by telling you what you're doing wrong. She showed up the first time in a golf cart, sunglasses on, clipboard ready. She didn't say hi. She didn't ask any questions. She just pointed at my fishing pole and started talking about lake regulations like she was reading from a courtroom script. Something about a new HOA code. Unauthorized recreational angling, whatever that means. I asked if she was serious. She didn't even blink. Handed me a paper that said I owed $600 and told me any future violations could lead to legal action. I stood there, pole in hand, coffee still warm, trying to wrap my head around what just happened. For 10 years, no one cared. Then suddenly, I was treated like some kind of criminal for fishing off a dock I'd basically babysat for a decade. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't about fish or permits or wildlife protection, like she claimed. This was about control, about someone who liked feeling powerful using rules to push people around. And once I realized that, I knew I couldn't just let it go. Because if they could get away with this, what would they try next? That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The fine, the notice, the smug way Karen handed it to me like she was doing the neighborhood a favor. I sat at my kitchen table with the crumpled paper in front of me, staring at it like it might explain itself. It didn't. So I made a phone call I hadn't made in a long time. My old buddy Barry, he's a lawyer now, the kind of guy who wears flip-flops to meetings but can tear apart a contract like it's tissue paper. We went to college together, and he's helped me with a few things over the years, mostly business stuff. When he picked up, the first thing he said was, "Dean, if this is about your ex and that dog, I'm still not apologizing." I laughed. "No, not that. I need you to look something up for me. The lake behind my cabin. Who actually owns it?" He paused. "You thinking lawsuit?" "Not exactly," I said. "I'm thinking checkbook." A couple of days later, Barry called back, sounding almost excited. "You're not going to believe this," he said. The HOA doesn't own the lake. Turns out, way back when the neighborhood was being built, the developers had some kind of lease agreement for the lake, but they never finished the purchase. The company that had the deed went quiet decades ago. The lake was still technically up for grabs. No one had ever actually bought it. I leaned back in my chair, just grinning. They thought they had me backed into a corner over some made-up fishing rule, but they didn't even know who owned the water they were yelling about. That's when the idea really took shape. I wasn't going to argue with them. I wasn't going to beg or write long emails. I was going to buy the damn lake. No more warnings taped to my door. No more fake fines. Just me, the deed, and the look on Karen's face when she found out. That was the moment I knew. These people picked the wrong fisherman. I didn't tell anyone what I was up to. Not my neighbors. Not even the guy at the gas station who always asked how the fishing was going. I kept my head down and played it cool. Meanwhile, Barry and I were busy tracking down the holding company that still had the rights to the lake. Turned out, it was owned by an elderly couple living in Florida. They'd inherited the land from some cousin years ago and had completely forgotten about it. When Barry explained the situation and made an offer, they didn't even hesitate. To them, it was just some leftover patch of water they never visited. To me, it was everything. While the paperwork moved through, I still sat out on my dock like always. Karen drove by a couple times in her golf cart, giving me her usual scowl. At one point she even waved, like we were neighbors just having a little disagreement. She had no idea. While she was handing out warnings and calling herself the lake's sheriff, I was signing a property transfer agreement that would make every one of her little rules worthless. A week later, it was done. I held the deed in my hands, real and stamped. It spelled it out clearly. The lake, the dock, the 10-foot buffer zone around the shoreline, all of it was mine. No lease, no shared agreement, just me. I stood there in my living room, looking at that paper, and felt something settle inside me. No more waiting for the next fine or the next stupid sign. No more HOA scare tactics. No more warnings. I owned it, shoreline to shoreline. The signs went up just after sunrise. I hired a crew from the next town over, guys Karen wouldn't recognize, to install them along the lake's edge. Each one was made of solid wood with bold, clear letters. Private property. No trespassing. Residents not welcome. I didn't want anything cheap or temporary. These were the kind of signs that said, "I'm not joking." By 8 a.m., the neighborhood group chat was already blowing up. People were posting photos, tagging board members, and demanding to know what was going on. I sat on my porch with my coffee, watching the chaos like it was a morning show. It didn't take long. I heard Karen's golf cart buzzing down the road like a wasp with an engine. She didn't stop at my house. She went straight to the lake, where 2 signs had been posted near the kayak rack. I could hear her yelling from halfway across the water. "Who put this up? This is illegal. He doesn't own this." I took my time walking down. I didn't say a word until I was standing right in front of her, holding a folder under my arm. She turned, ready to go off again, finger already in the air. "Dean, you can't just—" I opened the folder and handed her the deed. It had the county stamp on it, plain as day. She froze. "This land, this lake, it's mine," I said calmly. "Purchased legally, documented fully. The HOA never bought it. The signs are enforceable, and right now, you're standing on private property." She stared at the paper like it was written in another language. Her mouth opened, then closed. For once, she had nothing to say. She looked like she'd just been slapped with a wet fish. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. I just stood there, steady and quiet, while everything she thought she controlled slipped right out of her hands. At first, I thought the worst was over. The signs were up, the deed was in my name, and Karen had finally gone quiet. But peace didn't last long. A few days after our little face-off at the lake, I went down to check my canoe and found the ropes had been sliced clean through. Not frayed, not worn, cut. Nothing had drifted off, but the message was clear. A warning. I brushed it off, figured maybe someone was just blowing off steam. Then the smell hit me. Someone had dumped what I swear was rotten eggs across my doormat. Not just a couple, like someone went out of their way to ruin my whole morning. I cleaned it up and told myself to stay calm. But then it got serious. One morning I went to start my fishing boat, and something didn't feel right. When I checked the gas tank, it was full of sugar. That one wasn't funny. That could have destroyed the whole engine. I had to drain it, flush it, and spend a full day fixing what they'd done. That was it. I wasn't taking chances anymore. I installed motion sensor cameras around the dock, the boathouse, and the edge of my property. A few nights later, I caught someone on camera. Hoodie, flashlight, bolt cutters, creeping around like he was in a heist movie. And I knew him. Rick. One of Karen's HOA buddies. The same guy who once fined someone for putting up a bird feeder. He was halfway through cutting my backup dock line when I hit the alarm on my phone. The siren went off, loud enough to wake the trees. Rick tripped over his own feet and took off running. I didn't chase him. I didn't have to. The next morning I handed the footage to the sheriff. Rick got a trespassing citation. The HOA tried to spin it, said he was checking storm damage. No one believed it. That afternoon, I printed still shots from the footage and dropped a flyer in every mailbox in the neighborhood. On the back, in big, bold letters, I wrote, "Private property means private rules. Respect the line or pay the fine." The group chat lit up again, but this time, people weren't mad at me. They were looking straight at the HOA. After the flyer, with Rick's face, made its way through the neighborhood, things started to shift. People who used to avoid eye contact with me were suddenly waving from their driveways. A couple even came up to the fence and asked if everything was okay. The group chat wasn't full of complaints anymore. It was full of questions. Questions like, wait, the HOA didn't actually own the lake? And why did Karen say they did? You could feel the doubt creeping in, and once it started, it spread fast. The HOA board started to crack. A few of the quieter members stopped backing Karen in meetings. One of them, Marcia, even started leaving early. She looked tired, like someone who realized they'd signed up to plan barbecues and ended up in a war. Karen, on the other hand, was still trying to act like the queen of the neighborhood, but the throne was looking shaky. The moment that really flipped everything was at a board meeting a week later. Mr. Phelps, a retired guy who always wore the same fishing hat and barely spoke at all, stood up. He looked straight at Karen and said, "You told us this lake was HOA property. You told us Dean was breaking the rules. Turns out none of that was true." Then he added, "You've cost this neighborhood more than you know." Karen just sat there, eyes wide, like she'd been slapped with her own clipboard. That night, word spread that Karen was stepping down. Officially, it was called a voluntary resignation. Unofficially, no one wanted her running anything anymore. And just like that, the tide had turned. Winning the lake was one thing, but I didn't want it to just sit there like a trophy. I wanted it to stand for something. So I started building. Not just with wood and nails, but with a plan. I filed the paperwork for a private club and called it Lake Liberty. It felt right. Barry helped me sort out the legal side while I hired a local contractor to help design a small lodge. Nothing fancy, just a clean 2-room building with a rental booth, a shaded patio, and a spot for fishing gear. We set up an electric gate, added a fence along the access trail, and put up new signs that said clearly, Lake Liberty Private Club, membership required, HOA residents excluded. The message wasn't hidden. It was the whole point. We built a simple website with photos of the lake, pricing, and a spot to apply for membership. Families from nearby neighborhoods started signing up. Veterans, teachers, paddleboarders, they were excited to be part of something that didn't involve petty rules or surprise fines. I kept things fair: free permits for veterans and first responders, discounted day passes for seniors. It was everything I always wanted the lake to be. And, of course, it didn't take long for Karen to show up again. One hot afternoon, she came marching down the path with a sun hat, sunglasses, and a voice ready to fight. She said I couldn't legally ban people from the lake. I just pointed at the sign next to her, then handed her a printed copy of the club policy. "You banned me first," I said, calm as ever. "Now the rules just apply to everyone, including you." She stormed off without another word, knocking over a brochure stand on her way out. And just like that, Lake Liberty wasn't just mine. It was a symbol. And Karen? She was now just a visitor without a key. A few months later, our town held its annual community showcase, a local event where small businesses and clubs set up booths to show what they offer. Lake Liberty got invited, so I threw together a simple table with a few lake photos, some brochures, and a sign-up sheet for next season's membership list. Nothing flashy, just honest, peaceful, and well-run. Then I saw her. Karen showed up dressed like she was trying not to be noticed. Big sunglasses, wide hat, stiff smile. She wandered around for a while, then made her way over to my table. She picked up a brochure, flipped through it like she was bored, then looked at me and said, "Must be exhausting, running a whole lake, all that paperwork, all those people." I just smiled. "You'd be surprised," I said. "Things run pretty smoothly when the rules make sense and people actually want to follow them." Her jaw clenched, but she didn't argue. She grabbed one of the raffle cards sitting on the table, scribbled something on the back, and walked away without another word. I flipped it over after she left. 2 words in her sharp handwriting: "You win." I didn't keep the card. I didn't need to. The lake said enough. That evening, I walked down to the dock with a cold drink in hand. The sky was turning orange and pink, the water was still, and for the first time in a long while, everything felt quiet again. No signs being nailed up behind my back, no golf carts screeching down the path, just the sound of the water brushing against the wood and a couple of birds calling out in the distance. I sat down, let my legs hang over the edge, and watched the last bit of sun melt behind the trees. It was hard to believe how far things had come. A year ago, I just wanted to fish. That's it. I didn't plan on starting a fight or building a club or turning a lake into a statement. I just wanted to be left alone on a piece of water I cared about. But sometimes people don't let things be. Sometimes they push too hard. And when they do, you've got 2 choices: walk away or push back harder. I never set out to prove a point. But in the end, maybe that's exactly what happened. Sometimes, when someone tries to push you out of the water, the only thing left to do is buy the whole damn lake.